Hi guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to make a plushie pattern. So this is the pattern that I have made for my newest human base plush, and I use the same method basically. When I make my pattern, I basically use a drawing technique. I just sketch it and then I like measure out the measurements and make it all even and stuff. I do hope it's helpful to you. I'm sorry if it's not, because my way of making plushie patterns is very vague. So this is the base that I ended up sewing. If you wanted to do a simpler one, you can use the same technique and it will be easier. So like the pattern I use in my how to bake a base video, that's all connected as one, so that's really easy to sketch as a base as long as you have everything even. If you would like to see a video of me sewing this doll, let me know in the comments, and thank you very much for watching. Okay, so in this video I'm going to be doing a more complex pattern. So I'm going to be doing a pattern where like the arms and legs are sort of attached on separately, but I'm basically kind of going to be improving this one because I always felt this one was not as nice as like the other two chibi ones. And I've also got like an official plush doll. Obviously I'm going to be doing it bigger size than this, but I just wanted to look at the head because the head seems to be different to the way I do mine, and I want to make my head sort of a bit more oval shape rather than sort of plain round. So I noticed that the chin piece is kind of separate. I have this base as a reference here to size, and feel free to like use my measurements that I put in my how to make a base plushie video as also a reference to size as well, or you can go for a completely different size. So I'm using paper patterns and I'm just going to sketch out sort of this torso-y area, because how I make my patterns is I start off from a sketch and then I try and even up all the sizes just to like make sure that it's all even on both sides. So I'm just going to adjust some of the things as well from my original, from this template, because basically I just want to change up things up a bit. So just don't be afraid to like experiment with it, because at the end of the day it's your template, it's your pattern, you can do it how you want. And by all means do a test with some scrap fabric if you're not sure that it'll work. Drawing a line across from here to here can help you see if you've got like the end points of like armholes like in the right place. So actually I'm going to go a little bit lower than that, so if I just sketch a line I can make sure that they sort of end in the right, on the right area on both sides, if that makes sense. If it looks uneven, don't worry about it, because that's what I edit at the end, so I make sure that it looks right at the end. Okay, so now you can start to like measure your piece. You can choose to do this at the end when you've sketched all of them, or you can choose to do it when you've just sketched one, which I find easiest, because then you can put a piece to the side and you can use that as sort of an idea for the rest of your pieces. Because this is about 9 centimeters across here, I like to mark about halfway in the pattern, because that can help. Okay, so now I need to check that each side has got the right amount of length to it. This side needs a little bit extra. There we go. So now this bit is even. Just need to check this length. So what I like to do is I like to just sort of go over the sketchy bits. This is why my patterns always end up with like really funny kind of numbers. They're like always like 1 point something or something point something, because I never actually measure it to the centimeter. I always like just sketch it and just measure it based on my sketch. these points are not at the right angle here. So we need to make sure that this one joins up to this one. Okay, so I'm going to measure the width of this arm here because I like the size of this arm here. 4.5. So I'm going to pick the side that's closest to that. None of them are apparently. And I'm also going to draw a line from here to here just to see how far out this part goes. And so I prefer this side. Pick the side you prefer, and then you can see 0.5, and that needs to be then adjusted on the other side that isn't like that. So then you can go through like this. And then both your arm sides should be equal now. It's obviously going to be really difficult to get them spot on equal unless you actually print out an official pattern, but most of the time I find that drawing my own patterns has worked out pretty well, and it's just more rewarding when you draw your own patterns. That's how I do it for pretty much all the patterns. This torso piece is probably going to be hardest because it's connecting sort of all the areas of the plush. So you've got the neck here, the arms, the legs. So it's got kind of all the patterns kind of attached to it. So it's the most difficult one to sort of, configure and draw on that. So this is the hardest part that I've explained most of my methods on. Okay, so before I move on to the rest of the pieces, I'm just going to rub out the lines, cut out this template and write on the front of the template just so that I'm aware of what's needed for each template. And cutting it out just helps because you can then measure it up against the rest of the pieces that you draw, so you can then see how they would look up against each other. So another way to test if it is all correct sizes, you can fold it over in the line that you drew and just match it up with each other and see if it matches up in all the areas. If it doesn't, you can just trim it. Try not to trim it too much because then you might end up losing a lot of your pattern. So yeah, the only place I can really see is here, and it's only a tiny bit, so I'm just going to snip this part just to match it up there. And now, as you can see, my pattern is all even on both sides. So now you have your torso, you can start using this part to measure your legs and such. So your legs are obviously going to be coming off of this area here. So you can measure how big you want them. And I'm going to use this pattern to determine how long I want them to be, because I want them to sort of match with my other old pattern. I don't want it to be too much bigger. So this is about down here, and you've got to take into consideration that we'll be adding feet as well. So what I do with legs is I make them go down, and as they go down I'm giving my legs a bit more curve to them basically. Don't be afraid to make them go a bit more further outside the pattern, because let's be honest, the tops of the legs go outwards a bit. So, and then I like to curve it down at the bottom here, because I'm not a fan of straight lines anymore, because this was all straight lines, and sometimes it made it kind of hard to get shape in your pattern. So I would advise not to go with straight lines now. So just feel free to make it thicker if you feel like it needs. It's just basically how your eye sees it and basically how you'd like it to look. I mean, everyone has a personal preference on what they like in a plushie. When I get commissions, I always ask people what base they want, and usually it's different to what I would have picked. but it's really up to how you want to view it basically. And so up here I have a curve going to match this line here. You need to take into consideration when it's sewn together it will get like a lot thinner. And sometimes I've made patterns where I thought, yeah, that looks right, and then I've sewn it and it's looked really, really skinny. Okay, so next, arms. Now, I really love these kind of hands, and actually I'm thinking about switching, doing all my plushies with these kind of hands because I just think they look so damn cute. But basically I want to place them so that they go sort of side down. My very old Tatty Makishima doll that I made ages ago, I spilled coffee on him and everything. He's very loved, but his hands here, he's standing like, oh my goodness, look at that. Yeah, his hands are standing like this, whereas a normal person wouldn't stand like that, they'd stand like this. So I'm going to change that slightly so that it will fit onto like the pattern sideways. So what you need to do is you're going to need one piece longer and one piece shorter. For this piece actually you don't need to have that as an angle, just round it off. The hole here is going to be a bit smaller than your actual arm, so don't be afraid to make your arm a little bit thicker, because then that'll give the effect of like shoulders. Okay, so I have my foot pattern here that I created recently. It's quite a new pattern and I quite like it, but for the purpose of this new base, I'm just going to make it bigger because I'm going to actually be making the feet. I don't usually make feet, I usually make the shoes like straight from this foot template and use the colour fabric of their shoes, but I'm actually going to make like little feet for, you know, future reference if I make a character that has like bare feet or something. Right, so the head is the trickiest part I think to do for the plushie, especially considering I'm basing it off of my Makishima plush here. But I want to kind of shape the head a bit more, make it a bit more oval, add the chin, and I think there are two pieces in the back here that make the head slightly more round. So I'm going to start with the front piece. So I'm going to base it off this pattern because I like the size of this head. Okay, so here we have the face pattern. So this is just one piece. Now for the back. You want to make it slightly taller than this face piece because you want to make it round, so you want it to curve around. And you want it to be just over kind of half of here so that it kind of goes outwards a bit at the back. Mark a bit above here and here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a kind of pointy shape. I'm going to add a dart here because I want it to curl round the face, or around like the front part of the face. So just going to measure this bit here, 5.5, and then I'm going to the center here. That's not the center. And depending on how big you want the dart to be, just measure equal amounts from the side here, from the middle, and you can go up as high as you like. Just make sure that it's equal here, either side of this middle line. And if you want it to be bigger than that, just go a little bit further. Okay, so finally what's left to do is the chin. So as you can see here, the top point here will go to the center and it will roll around here. You'll have your dart closed like this, and it's very hard to do, but basically the chin point starts from this little crease here. So I just need to make a sort of a pointy kind of piece, I would say like this, and make sure it's thick enough just so that it's gonna be able to go all the way around to attach to the neck. I just use scrap paper, like most of these are like sheets from school that I used to have, and I kept them just because I thought, oh, paper, and I just draw, or if they're creased like this, use them for patterns. You need it to be able to stretch from here to here, so I'll measure that. Just first of all sketch a line. So find the center of this line and then figure out how thick you want it. So I'm going to go with 4.5. I'm going to measure it from here to here on my Makishima plush, and I say that's about 4 centimeters. So I'm going to have 4 centimeters of purely like going to the point. So, but first what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line across the top of these, because this will be your then sort of base chin piece. And then from here you should be able to get the right angle, because from the end of this point match it up to this top line and bottom line, the width of 4 centimeters, or however long you want. It's up to you to decide the measurements, but this is just how I make sure I get the right sized points. Just curving off the corners of where the triangles meet, like the rectangles. Okay, so there we have it. All your plushy parts. This is your plushie pattern, and now all you need to do is sew it together, and I will sew it together for you off camera and show you what it looks like when it's sewn as a base. So I hope this video was helpful to you, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you for the support on my channel. Feel free to check out my Instagram page or my Facebook page for exclusive drawing and other content that I don't actually put onto my channel.